I read the message 3 times, each slower than the last, as if trying to extract some hidden meaning from every single word. I need some time to figure myself out. No contact, no emojis, no exclamation marks. Just words, cold, precise, final. I set my phone down, fingers hovering over the screen, as if touching it might give me an answer. There was none. My mind immediately switched into analysis mode. No panic, no pleading, just analysis. Step 1, assess the situation. Step 2, identify motives. Step 3, predict outcomes. Step 4, plan the next move. Variable 1, word choice. No contact, absolute. No exceptions. No loopholes. This wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. She wanted a clean break, to create distance, maybe even test my reaction, to probe boundaries. The strategy, observe. Do not intervene. Variable 2, timing. I noted the time. Late at night. No context provided. Classic pressure tactic, testing my response when I was tired. Less alert, predictable. Advantage, maintain neutrality. Don't let emotions take over. Variable 3, external factors. Phone buzzed. Social notifications. Her mother tagged her in a post. Public, deliberate, not random. Added pressure, a subtle reminder that others were watching. I studied the screen, noting every detail. Expression, caption, engagement. All data, no judgment. Only information. I leaned back in my chair, letting my shoulders relax just enough. No room for impulsive reaction. Calmness was an advantage. My mind scanned patterns, past conversations, previous withdrawals, subtle shifts in tone, frequency of messages. A timeline emerged. Clear, measurable, actionable. Emotions tried to creep in. Frustration. Disbelief, but I tagged them as irrelevant to next move. Priority, understand her strategy. Predict her actions. Retain control without losing composure. I reopened the last chat. Read each line, sequentially. Past 3 weeks. Every word, every ellipsis, every choice of phrasing considered. I'm stressed and I need space. Precise language. Pauses carefully placed. A challenge, perhaps. Would I lose control or stay composed? I ran a mental list of response options. Not sending immediately. Options ranked by strategic value. Do nothing. Observe and collect data. Advantage, maintain control. Avoid falling into emotional traps. Send a neutral acknowledgement. Advantage, signal awareness without yielding. Attempt dialogue. Disadvantage, risks showing reaction, losing leverage. Decision matrix complete. Optimal choice, observe. Collect more information from public actions. Maintain inner state. Avoid showing desperation. I examined the post she was tagged in. Analyzed expression, posture, context, all indirect signals of current priorities. Data suggested she wanted to reinforce independence, autonomy. No contradictions detected. Estimated accuracy, 87%. I ran scenarios for the next 48 hours. Scenario 1, she fully withdraws. Scenario 2, minimal engagement through third-party posts. Scenario 3, direct contact to explain. Probabilities mapped. Outcome matrix ready, no shock, no panic. Emotion acknowledged, set aside. Breath measured, calculated. Friends texted, checking in. I replied curtly, "I'm fine," short, controlled, no overreaction. Silence, a strategy maintained advantage, projecting stability. Finally, I considered long-term consequences. The balance of the relationship disrupted. Opportunity to reassess compatibility, expectations, personal boundaries. This break wasn't only hers, it was a strategic turning point for both. Observation, analysis, and timing would dictate next moves. Instinct to call, text, beg noted, and shelved. Objective priority: stay calm, gather information, prepare an effective response. Any rash move would cost control. I leaned back, arms behind my head. Room quiet, only the soft hum of electronics. Data collected. Variables mapped. Probabilities calculated. No decision yet. Patience was essential. Timing would determine effectiveness. Beneath the cold exterior, one truth remained: nothing could be rushed. Influence measured, not forced. Power maintained through discipline, observation, and strategic restraint. A simple text. But the game was complex. The break had begun. Rules hers. But the action plan, mine. The first day passed without a single message. No surprise, no disappointment, just a void, but in my mind, that void was full of data. I observed, noted, analyzed. Every small action she took on social media was decoded like an encrypted signal. She posted a morning photo, coffee on the balcony, looking out over the city. Caption short, taking a moment to breathe. Posture casual, but not careless. Her eyes slightly distant. Data suggested one thing. She wanted to maintain control, to not reveal any emotional lack. I noted no provocation, self-controlled. A few hours later, another story appeared. She was walking outside, headphones in, a faint smile but no interaction with anyone. More data. The pattern emerged. She kept her distance, watched from the sidelines, but didn't engage directly. Strategy, subtle control. I noticed the rule. Every action was deliberate. Each step carefully managing distance and image. Messages from friends asked, "You okay?" I replied briefly, "No frills, I'm fine." Advantage: stay calm, maintain control, don't show emotion. Every word typed was part of a strategy, not a reflex. I reopened the recent timeline. Every conversation, comment, and social post, all mapped. Behavioral patterns became clear. When stressed, she withdrew. When asserting herself, she left indirect marks. Messaging frequency dropped. Personal sharing decreased. Public engagement increased. This was a strategy of emotional control at a distance. I calculated probabilities. 82% she wanted to maintain control. 18% remained as a test of my reaction. By afternoon, a public post appeared. She was out with a group of friends. Caption: beautiful day to connect. No tags for me. No direct message. I noted neutral signal, no conflict, no plea. All within predictable patterns. I reminded myself, no rash reaction, no impulsive moves. Control was paramount. Any sign of impatience would cost leverage. I mentally drafted a scenario chart. If she continued to observe from afar, I'd maintain composure. If unexpected interaction occurred, I'd respond neutrally, without emotion steering me. Strangely, my emotions sharpened. Not explosive, not intense, but acute. Awareness of every detail, eyes, posture, captions, likes, timing, turned into data. I analyzed continuously. This was a strategy game, not just a relationship. Night fell, room silent. I stared out at the city lights, every detail mapped, data collected, decisions not yet made, strategy ongoing. This break wasn't only her test, it was an opportunity to observe, measure, and strengthen my position. In my head, I built a 24-hour scenario matrix. Her potential responses, friends, involvement, hidden social cues, all converted into probabilities, ratios, predictions. No panic, no rush, just observation, data collection, planning. Outside, everything seemed calm, but inside, a subtle, intricate game was unfolding. She set the rules, but I controlled how I moved next. Advantage didn't come from reclaiming her immediately, but from staying sharp, analyzing accurately, and preparing for every possibility. The break had just begun, but I was ready. Every post, every message, every action was data. Every move I made was calculated. No haste, no emotion, only observation and waiting for the moment when advantage could turn into the right decision. The second day began quietly, but with subtle tension. I kept watching her on social media, checking every story, every post. Everything seemed predictable. Distance, self-control, no direct interaction. Then an unexpected signal appeared. A short story, a video of her laughing, looking directly at the camera, saying a brief sentence, "Today feels different." No mention of me, no tag, but the tone. Not neutral, a small crack in the wall of her composure. I noted the hint could be a test of my reaction or an accidental reveal of emotion. I immediately analyzed, is this an opportunity or a trap? React too quickly, and I'll show desire, losing control. Ignore it, and I might miss an important cue. I assigned probabilities, 60% a challenge, 40% accidental in my mind. I built a scenario matrix. Scenario 1, she wants to test my reaction. I stay silent, continue observing. Scenario 2, she accidentally reveals her true feelings. I remain neutral but record the data for later use. Scenario 3, she opens a path for direct interaction. I prepare a strategic response, ensuring emotions don't take over. By evening, another post appeared. She was out walking with a friend, but her eyes briefly glanced at her phone. This behavior contradicted the picture I had drawn. She maintained distance, but a part of her wanted indirect connection. I noted, complex signal, continue observing. Friends messaged, everything okay? You good? I replied calmly, I'm fine. Nothing new. Maintaining strategy, controlled silence, revealing no emotional fluctuation. Night fell. I sat by the window, city lights flickering. Every variable, every action, every post, all recorded. I mapped a 48-hour scenario, every possibility predicted. Every reaction planned. Outside, everything seemed calm. But in my mind, the game had never been more intense. Every move she made was new data. Every gesture was a test. And me, I remained neutral, observing, analyzing, waiting for the moment to turn advantage into decision. Silence wasn't passivity, it was strategy. And strategy only works if I fully control my emotions, understand every signal, and never let an impulsive move break my initiative. The break continued. The rules belonged to her, but the right to decide and respond still mine. 3 days after the missed call, still no signal. No posts, no stories, no interactions. But this silence wasn't calm, it was deliberate. A kind of strategic withdrawal. I felt like I was staring into a data void, where every metric suddenly dropped to 0. At first, I thought it was a chance to reset, but then the silence started generating its own kind of noise. I checked my phone more often, pretending it was just to check the time. Each time the screen lit up without a notification, something brushed against the edge of my restraint. I noted it down, a sign of energy loss, a small fracture in the structure of control. On the 4th night, a post appeared from her friend. A group photo, she was in the middle, soft smile, natural makeup, warm lighting. The caption read simply, "Recharge weekend." I looked closely, same bar as before. The same man was there too, but not standing close. Contradictory data could be a peace signal or camouflage. I opened the comments. Someone asked, "You two back together?" She replied with a closed-mouth smile emoji. No confirmation, no denial. That's when the line between strategy and emotion started to blur. Part of me wanted to react. Another part recorded, tactic of ambiguity. Maintains control of the narrative. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tried to work, but fragments of memory slipped in. Morning coffees, small arguments, the way she used to look at me like she was trying to read something deeper in my eyes. I realized I was now analyzing things that couldn't be measured, memories, feelings, loss. The things I used to label as noise had become the main signal. The next morning, a message appeared. Not from her, from an unknown number. "She's fine. She just needs time." Don't push. No introduction. No signature. I checked the area code, compared numbers, and realized it was from her best friend. An indirect message, but a clear one. I was being watched. The game was now mutual. I sat there for a long time, motionless, then opened my notes. All those charts, behavior models, and data patterns suddenly felt absurd. Because even if I could quantify every variable, I still couldn't control the pulse in my chest every time her name appeared. In that moment, I understood the conflict was no longer between her and me. It was inside me, between reason and instinct, between the observer and the one slowly being consumed by what he observed. I shut the laptop, placed the phone in a drawer, and stepped outside. No more monitoring. No more data collection. The night air was cold and dry against my face. I took a long breath. The emptiness was expanding, terrifying, but honest, and as I stood there on that quiet street, I finally understood. The break she asked for wasn't just distance for herself. It was a test to see if I could stop, if I could let go of my need for control. For the first time in days, I didn't take notes. I didn't analyze. Just silence. But this time, silence wasn't strategy. It was acceptance. A new kind of measurement, not by data, but by feeling. And I knew then the boundary had started to shift. That night, I couldn't sleep. Everything in my small apartment was swallowed by darkness, except for the faint glow from the street lamp outside, tracing restless patterns across the wall. I tossed and turned, but Professor Brooks's face kept appearing in my mind. Those gentle eyes, that soft but weary smile, and the gaze that could see straight through you, both comforting and terrifying in its quiet understanding. When dawn finally came, Boston was covered in a thin, cold mist. I grabbed my coat and walked outside, not sure why or where I was going, until suddenly, there it was, the old brick house. The metal gate creaked as I pushed it open. Fallen leaves piled up along the steps. No one had been here for days, maybe weeks. The silence felt sacred, like time had stopped the moment he left. I knocked once. Then again, no response. Finally, I turned the handle. It opened with a soft groan. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. Morning light slipped through the curtains, painting everything in a faded gold. On the wooden desk by the window, the very spot where I'd often seen him reading, lay a leather-bound notebook. My hands trembled as I reached for it. The first line, written in his unmistakable, neat handwriting. Read, for the students I never had the chance to listen to long enough. I flipped through the pages. Each one was filled with quiet thoughts, fragments of his reflections about loneliness, trust, and the invisible pain people carry. There were short notes about different students, not critiques, but gentle, deeply human observations. Then, I saw my name, Emily, and below it, a line that made me stop breathing. Emily, the one who hides in silence, yet listens with her whole heart. One day, she'll understand. Silence can heal, but only when it's shared. I sank into the nearest chair. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. He had seen me, really seen me, when I thought I was invisible. Just another quiet student fading into the background of his lecture hall. I kept reading, page after page, until the sunlight slowly filled the room, washing the air in warmth. Something shifted inside me, small but undeniable. The guilt, the regret, the ache of things unsaid. They were still there, but lighter now. They'd turned into something else, a reminder, a responsibility, a deep and quiet gratitude. I whispered into the stillness, "Thank you, Professor, for seeing me even when I couldn't see myself." The curtains fluttered in the morning breeze. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. It felt as though someone, somewhere, was listening, silently, gently, just like Professor Brooks always did. That afternoon, the Boston sky was washed in a pale grey, as if the whole city had chosen silence to mourn. I carried Professor Brooks's notebook back to campus, my chest heavy, not with confusion anymore, but with a strange, luminous kind of sorrow. His office was at the end of the third-floor hallway, where autumn sunlight filtered through tall windows, laying soft golden bands across the floor. The door was still locked, but the small plaque with his name, Professor Henry Brooks, was there, a bit chipped, but steadfast. I stood there for a long moment until the department secretary handed me the spare key. She gave me a small smile. "You're Emily, right? He talked about you often." The words caught me completely off guard. My throat tightened when the door opened. The familiar scent of his space came flooding back, stale coffee, old paper, and the faint musk of oak wood. Everything was still in place. Open books, neatly stacked papers, his cardigan draped over the back of the chair. On the wall above the desk, a note in his distinct handwriting read, "Empathy is not taught. It's practiced." I sat in his old chair, opened my laptop, and stared at the blank screen. My hands trembled at first, then moved on their own. I began typing, not as a student, not as an assignment, but as someone trying to preserve something sacred. I transcribed every fragment from his notebook, his thoughts, philosophies. quiet questions about the human heart so they wouldn't disappear with him when I was done. I attached the file to an email addressed to our entire class. I wrote just one line, for anyone who ever felt unseen. I closed the laptop, expecting nothing, but within an hour, notifications started lighting up my phone. Messages came pouring in, stories from classmates who'd been helped by him in ways none of us ever knew. One wrote that he'd paid their textbook fees without ever mentioning it. Another shared that he once sat with them for hours, just listening when they couldn't face another day. Soon, the inbox became a small archive of kindness, hundreds of quiet acts that had gone unnoticed. Now resurfacing like pieces of a hidden constellation, I sat there in the glow of the screen, tears rolling silently down my face, yet I was smiling. For the first time, I truly understood what it meant to be seen and to listen. Professor Brooks hadn't just taught us about the darkness within people. He had shown us how, even in that darkness, light can still exist, soft, steady, human. Outside the window, maple leaves drifted slowly through the wind, and from somewhere distant, the faint sound of church bells echoed through the evening. I closed my eyes. In the stillness, I could almost hear his voice, calm, deep, endlessly patient. "Listen, Emily, always listen," and I whispered back into the quiet autumn air. "I'm listening, Professor. I always will." Winter arrived slowly in Boston. The wind carried the scent of frost through the old brick buildings, whispering across the narrow streets. I still walked past the library every morning, where soft sunlight streamed through tall windows and bathed the wooden tables in a golden haze. Whenever I passed Professor Brooks's old office, I stopped, not to look, but to listen. The door had long been locked, yet sometimes, when the wind rattled the glass, I could almost hear him reading from that notebook again. Empathy is not taught. It's practiced. His voice still lived in the rhythm of those words, calm and steady. Since the day I sent that email, things had changed. Students began forming a small, informal group. No agenda, no labels, just a space to talk, to listen, without judgment, without rushing. People started speaking honestly, sharing the fragile, hidden parts of themselves. And as I sat among them, quietly listening, I realized I was doing what I once feared the most, letting others in. One night, as snow fell softly outside my window, I opened his notebook again. Tucked between the pages was a folded slip of paper I hadn't noticed before. His handwriting, delicate but certain, read, "If one person learns to listen, truly listen, then silence has done its work." I smiled through tears. It wasn't just a message, it was his legacy. I folded the note and placed it in my coat pocket, like carrying a quiet promise with me wherever I go. Now, whenever I teach a discussion class, I begin the way he once did. Tell me what you heard, not what you think. At first, the students look confused. Then, the room slowly fills with that beautiful kind of silence, the one that invites honesty, and I finally understood. Silence isn't an absence. It's a space for empathy, for truth, for connection. I don't know where I'll go next, but whenever the wind drifts through Harvard Yard, carrying that soft echo of old voices, I know one thing for sure. Professor Brooks never really left. He simply left behind fragments of silence, and they're still speaking.